Good evening, councillors, and welcome. 6:30 p.m. on Monday. 6:45. It is 6:45. We're starting late. Sorry, 6:45 on Monday, the 3rd of May, 2021. Welcome to this special council meeting. We declare the meeting open as I have and acknowledge the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land. We also pay our respects to elders both past and present. May I ask everyone present this evening to turn off all electronic devices, including the two members of the staff here, iPads and tablets for the duration of the meeting. Tonight's council meeting is being recorded. A copy of the audio recording shall be available on the city's website within 72 hours of the meeting, and the remainder of the disclaimer can be seen on the screen. And just for the sake of the recording, if councillors do sound a little muffled tonight and a bit difficult to understand, it's because we're all wearing our masks in accordance with the most recent COVID guidelines. At 2 attendants, I'm very pleased to say that the entire council is present, as Director Kane, our CEO Arthur Chiron. Disclosures of interest. There have, well, I might just ask the CEO, have you received any this today?
None received, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there's been no disclosure of interest in relation to the matter being discussed tonight. Question time for the public. I won't read through the preamble, and I can see there are no members of the public here, so we will not open or close question time for the public at item 4. We'll move through to receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations at item 5. There are none. At item 5.2 and 5.3, which are presentations and deputations, likewise there are none. Reports, we only have one report in front of us this evening, councillors. That's report CC 012 of 21. The responsible officer for that report is Mr. Stephen Kane, the Director of Canning Corporate and Commercial, who is present here tonight. The title of that report being the Model Code of Conduct for Council Members, Committee Members and Candidates. The recommendation is on page 5 of the agenda and is on screen right now. I'll just read through a bit of a preamble. Before I get to that, we'll require an absolute majority tonight, so an absolute majority is required. The item was first presented to the Ordinary Council meeting held recently on the 20th of April 2021, where it was moved by Deputy Mayor Jacobs and seconded by Councillor Ben Kunza. A procedural motion was then moved by Councillor Sweeney, seconded by Councillor Porter, to adjourn the item to a special council meeting on the 3rd of May, being this evening. That motion was passed 10-1, with Councillor Bain voting against the adjournment. Prior to the procedural motion being moved, the mover and the seconder, followed by the Mayor, spoke for the motion, and Councillor Sabiri spoke against the motion. So the seconder, myself and Councillor Sabiri have already spoken and cannot speak any further on this matter. Do I have any other? I understand that Councillor Barry wishes to put an amendment at some stage. Well, we could do that right now. Councillor Barry, do you want to go straight to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did take the opportunity to put forward, I think is it up there on the screen?
I've just got the handwritten one there, Graham, and the first bit here, what have I got? The Director, it's on the screen there now. Councillor Barry, you happy with that? I'll get you just to read through that.
Right, so as I've got it written here, the amendment to read in point 3 that after the words Chief Executive Officer, comma, and then add the Director of Canning Development in his absence as the designated officers. And 2 would be a new 5 to read that the CEO will facilitate a workshop or workshops to develop a policy framework procedure with elected members to fully activate the complaints process, such as complaints assessment committee and external consultants. And you could put etc. on the end. Then the old 5 becomes the new 6.
Yes, I just obviously you've asked work through governance with that one. Can I just ask in relation to just a question in relation to the Model Code of Conduct? Does it follow that once we adopt what we're adopting tonight, that there is a requirement under the legislation to develop the policy in any case? Is that already something that is occurring? Are we required to do that in any case? Oh, okay. Yep, I have no problem with that. Can I have Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo?
Sorry, if I may, just in case we get a female CEO, can we put his and or her on point 3? If you don't mind, Councillor Barry.
No.
Yes, very good pickup. Councillor Barry, you fine with that?
Yes.
His or her? Yep,
Could we
terrific.
put
Okay, no, I like that. Good
LGBTQI
pickup.
as well.
Can I have a seconder, please, for that amendment? Councillor Sweeney has seconded the amendment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reasoning basically behind this is, and it's probably something similar to what I've already said, Council needs to ratify the Model Code of Conduct, and in turn we must consider and resolve to develop and resolve on policy framework of who will assess complaints, etc. This amendment basically authorises that process, and it also provides the deputy to handle a deputy to handle the complaints process when the CEO is absent. Now, essentially, I drew on this from CEO Chiron's next steps, and I noticed that a couple of councils that were provided to us by Mr Kane have also done something similar, and it basically says to develop the policy framework to activate the complaints process. This is where elected members will need to consider who they want to carry out the complaints and assessment. Example of the committee, external consultants, internal staff. And going further down in that email that was provided by the CEO, there was a number of questions that I asked, and I think these were all answered by Tony Brown, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 that basically say this should be considered as part of post 3rd of May special council meeting. So essentially we're only doing what we've been told, but I mean, just as a council, I'm asking for the council to authorise that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeney, have you got anything to add? And we're only talking just about the amendment at the moment, not about the motion proper, but just the amendment.
Yeah, the only thing that I will add that I think it makes it's a worthwhile consideration. I think it adds a lot more clarification where we are sitting with this at the moment. So I'm just reading all of it now. I did have another question, but I think it's covered off in part 5 there in under that section, part 5, what Councillor Berry's put forward. So no, I'll leave it at that. Nothing further to add.
I'll just say that I'm in favour of it. I have no issue at all with it. And I think the CEO not being that person, not that it really matters a great deal, but I think it's a good idea. And I support the amendment. Anyone else? Councillor Kunze?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Councillor Barry, what is the reason for articulating the Director of Canning Development? Would the CEO not just articulate who the acting CEO is when they are leaving on leave? Why are we?
I think it's because governance comes under the CEO. No, CEO. Why? Yep. Actually, I think the initial question. Did you want to direct it through through the chair to Councillor Barry?
Well, he's the mover of the motion, so.
Oh, Councillor Barry, can you just maybe advise why you chose the Director of Canning Development in his absence?
The only reason that I did choose the director is, and I'm not saying that Director Bowe is a lesser light or anything like that, but the Director of Canning Development is currently, I think, head of the CIMT, has been here a long time, has a level of expertise, nothing more than that. It could have been Director Bowen, I could have been answering the same question, or even Director McQuaid, but once again, probably I'm just going on the seniority of the directors as they sit. Thank you.
Yeah, CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Just provide some clarity around the CAMT. All directors are present on the critical crisis incident management team. So if the reason is because of Director Bride's position on that, all of the directors have an equal position on it. The only other area I would think that you might be considering is the fact that Director Bride is leading the recovery component of our COVID recovery. So that's his position on that, and he's the lead director on that, on the recovery area. I can't answer the question, Councillor Kunzer, as to why, other than that, the information I provided and other than Councillor Barry's provided as to why that particular person was chosen, but Councillor Barry has already given you a response to that, I think.
Councillor Kunzer, follow up?
Can we separate the voting? We're not voting for a person, we're voting for a position, and we're, I guess, making a decision on the process going forward. And I just don't see why we'd be putting in a position, if the Director of Canning Development and the CEO are on leave, then what we directing it to do. I don't understand why you'd articulate a position, not a person, a position as the follow-up. It should be the acting CEO. So I support the second part, but not the first part. So can we separate
You're
it?
saying you're supporting two, but not the
So
first part of it.
I agree with part 5, but not the changes to part 3.
Director Kane, I heard you, I think it was you muttering, I couldn't tell because of the face mask on you, I think it was your lips, I could hear it moving. Can I just ask from the Chair, just for your advice on that, only because this is your report and you're actually in charge of corporate and commercial, which is also governance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, under the Act, there is always, in the absence of a CEO, an acting CEO who has all the delegated powers of the CEO. Once the CEO designates whoever, for instance, last week was Director Bowe, that person becomes the de facto CEO. So in the event of a complaint coming in, I'm struggling to see where you'd probably need to get somebody else out, because by dint of the position, a complaint would always go to the acting CEO in the absence of the CEO.
Can I, Councillor Barry, sorry to drop this on you, but is that something you might want to consider, just the wording of that, just in light of the information that we've just received? Because, I mean, I was happy to support it in its first instance, but I think that it's a correct point that's been made.
No, I'm happy to leave it as it is. I mean, let the cards fall as they may, but I mean, within the document it says that we have to have, or not have to have, the council should consider. Now, I've only got there a Director of Canning Development, and once again we've got his or hers because things may change into the future. You could put any director. You know, I don't know how you would word it. I mean, you can take out Director of Canning Development,
CEO.
but
Acting CEO.
acting CEO.
That's I think what they're suggesting is that instead of designating that person, it would be the CEO or acting CEO.
Well, it makes it a bit difficult, I suppose, from the point of view that, like I said, I mean, with all respect to Director Kane, who's only been here a short time, I mean, all our other directors have been acting CEOs at one time. I mean, it used to be Gary Adams, everybody's had a shot at it. So if we want to change Director Canning Development to acting CEO, I'm happy with that as an amendment.
You happy to do that?
Yeah.
Councillor, sorry? Councillor Sweeney, are you happy to just change that, and I'll just consider that as a minor amendment that won't need to go to a vote? So
yeah, actually, I was just going to
changing it to CEO or acting CEO.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Dorothy Kane was going to say. We always have people acting in those positions, so we've amended it accordingly. I think that's the way it should read, and that's the way it should be set. So
Governance, can I just thank you? I'll just get so that's what it now says on the screen. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer, or obviously the acting Chief Executive Officer in his absence, her absence, as the designated authorised officers. You happy with that, Councillor Barry? And Councillor Sweeney, you are happy with that? Councillor Porter, do you want to speak to, or do you want to ask a question? Yep, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, the acting CEO, are they not the CEO? And did we want to change his/her to their, just because if we're going to be PC...
I just missed that last bit. I heard the first bit. Yes, the acting CEO would be the CEO, He
Yeah,
wouldn't be
so-
acting because he would be appointed as the CEO.
But more, they have the same power, so it seems kind of pointless to put in acting CEO because they are the CEO.
Director Kane,
No?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are circumstances where the CEO might not be physically in the state, and therefore some powers delegated to the CEOs. For instance, if the CEO's gone to a conference interstate, and the business of council still needs to continue, well, he would appoint an acting CEO, even though he was still able to access all of his materials, emails, etc. So that it's quite reasonable to just put the CEO or the acting CEO to be quite clear. And I agree that grammatically using the word there, which is gender neutral, is a much better way of expressing it.
okay. You happy with that, Councillor Barry, the word there? Well, councillors, does anyone wish to speak? We've had Councillor Barry propose the amendment and speak to it. Councillor Sweeney has agreed to those minor amendments, and that's what we have here. Does anyone wish to either support it or speak against it before we put the amendment to the vote? Thanks, councillors. Councillor Barry, let's put that the amendment to the vote.
The amendment to CC 0112-21, the Model Code of Conduct, has been carried unanimously, 11 in favour.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Sweeney and Councillor Barry. That it now becomes a substantive motion. Again, I have already spoken to the substantive motion, as has Councillor Sabiri, and also who was the other? Sorry, Councillor Kunzer. I think you've already spoken to as a seconder to the substantive motion. Does anyone wish to speak either for or against before we put it to the vote? Councillor Barry.
Just a question. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, through the...
Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, through you to the CEO, what sort of a timeline, because it wasn't for me to say, when we would have these workshops. And I understand that, well, there are DLG, we're still waiting on something concrete. But I mean, do we have some sort of a timetable, or are we waiting on that?
CEO Coram.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. There's a lot on our program in council at the moment. We have budgets, we have long-term financial plans, we have SIBs, there are a number of issues. We'll need to also line up those people with perhaps some expertise in this area. So I can't give you a time estimate. I'd love to get it finished before I leave, because I want to leave as whatever I can for the incoming CEO. So leave it. I think you're going to have to leave it with me, and I'll try and get a program together, and I'll communicate that to you as soon as possible.
Anyone wish to speak against the matter or in support of it before we put the matter to the vote? Thank you. I don't think anyone has spoken against a substantive motion. I'm not certain that there's an... Councillor Sabiri? Oh, you spoke against it. With that being the case, then I will ask the mover, which is Deputy Mayor Jacobs. I might ask you to close debate, and then we'll put the matter to the vote. Deputy Mayor Jacobs.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the same argument that we haven't asked for this, but under the state government regulations, we have left this to the last minute. We've obviously done that so we could clarify our position, and subsequently a minor amendment has been put up. I'm satisfied that we need to pass this to make sure that we adhere to the state government, which under the Act has control of local governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Jesse Jacobs. Let's put the matter to the vote. Thank you, councillors. Just your microphone, Karen, sorry.
Thanks. CC 0112-21, Model Code of Conduct for Council Members, Committee Members and Candidates, as amended, was carried unanimously, 11 in favour.
That's an absolute majority, Karen.
That is indeed. So item 1 required an absolute majority, for which it has.
I just get you to hold on just for a moment, councillors. Thank you. At item 7, confidential reports, there are none this evening. At items 8, I think it should be, closure. There being no further business this evening, I now declare that this evening's meeting closed at 7:05 p.m. and I'd like to thank you all very much for your attendance. Thank you, councillors.